So, the Flash is back, yes, and we finally get the complete story, more or less, I suppose, of Nora in Godspeed. Now, Godspeed refers to a Flash character I'm not particularly familiar with, but you got to admit that's a good name for a speedster. And he certainly, I think I've seen images of him, and that the outfit he has looks pretty much like what it is and all that. But I don't know the full story, so I don't know how accurate this was to it. But nevertheless, when we last left our friends in the Flash, they found out that Nora had been getting advice from the Reverse Flash, Eobard Thawne. And, of course, Barry really loses it and locks her away in one of the metahuman cells, and that's where it ended. Well, they come back and they have her diary, so they decide to read it and get the full story. And so we're taken back to the future in 2049. And Nora has followed in her father's footsteps. She's a CSI. And she has a friend there, and they're working on a case, and this Godspeed guy shows up, and she figures it out that it's a speedster, and all this stuff's going on. And you get more of the details that you already pretty much knew, that at some point she would discover that she does have powers. They encounter Godspeed, and what he's doing is trying to recreate the, what was it, velocity, whatever, the drug that can give you speed powers, but it doesn't last, and he was working on one that would be permanent. And he was hitting all these different labs and getting the chemicals to do it. And they encounter him, and he hits her with a lightning bolt, and she smashes into the chemicals, and he's like, oh, it's the same origin as the Flash. But while at the hospital, they discovered this fragment inside her, and that's, of course, was the dampening chip that Iris had put on her to keep her powers from manifesting, because she didn't want to lose her daughter the way she lost Barry in this mysterious crisis they keep referring to. And they're on their way to doing the crossover event, the Crisis on Infinite Earth, so I'm guessing they'll finally address this. But with Nora coming back in time and all this stuff, again, the Flash season has always been about timelines being changed. So even from the beginning, you weren't getting the original Flash story because it was already messed up thanks to Reverse Flash and all that. So continuing with that, it's pretty much been a time travel story alongside being a superhero story. So it's more understandable from the position that Nora was coming from when you see the whole story. As for how good an episode this was, there's a little bit of cheesiness because it's Nora and all that. But then all of a sudden, bam, her buddy gets murdered by Godspeed, and then this is right when this happens, and Nora has to discover that her mother had done this to her about her powers. And she doesn't learn that Barry Allen was the Flash, her father, until Eobard Thawne kind of just lets it slip there. Well, slip. I mean, he just pretty much pushes her in the right direction, and she finds out. She finds the secret room at Star Labs and all that sort of thing. And there's a tape of Barry from the Crisis, and you can see the red skies in the background. So that's what he's going through at the moment. So he tapes a brief message for his daughter, and goes off to apparently die in the Crisis. Now, she turns to Thawne because there's no one else for her to turn to. She feels betrayed by her mother. Her best friend at work is dead, and all this stuff is hitting her at once. And then she finds out who her father was and what happened to him. All of this stuff. And meanwhile, Thawne is scheduled to be executed, and the time is ticking away. And so she's been zooming back and forth through time while his last day is still ticking away. And so after all this is revealed, Iris wants to be a little easier on her, but Barry is saying he can't trust her because she had ample opportunity. He could understand her initial deal with working with Thawne and wanting to meet Barry and all that and get to know him. But also she wants to keep him from disappearing into the Crisis as well. I don't know if he fully understood that or she addressed it or not, but he knew this was coming because that's been from the beginning of the series. And of course her diary discusses this, but he's so filled with hatred towards Thawne because Thawne is the man who murdered his mother. And so he makes the point that after a while, she could have come clean and said, well, look, this is what happened. Because she didn't know. She didn't know what Thawne had done, but she did find out. And she still kept it secret and all this. But it's an odd thing about how they handle this, because I don't know if they mentioned it or not. I didn't know that she had actually, well, she was actually working as a CSI and all that. She appears more mature in this version of her, and yet this is in the past. In her timeline, it's in the past. When she arrives, she's kind of this bubbly, goofy kid, and that's part of her personality, and probably a little bit always will be. But so it was a little odd about that. Maybe they did mention it, I just didn't catch it or not. But anyway. But the idea of her goofiness and a sort of gullibleness, and all this is happening very quickly. And so, I mean, Barry's coming. I was thinking he's being a little too hard on her, and maybe he'll come to his senses. But ultimately, he decides to banish her back to her home time. And he says, he brings her back, and he says, if you try to come back, I'll feel it in the Speed Force, and I'll find you and I'll force you back to your home. So don't come back looking for me. It's really harsh. I mean, he's really angry because it's Thawne and all that stuff. And I understand his pain on that. But after reading the book and everything, you understand the anger and all that. But what he really needs to do, and he does, is confront Thawne over this. And, well, he does. And even Thawne's like, look, don't blame her. You know, she just wanted to meet her daddy. And, of course, he doesn't trust anything Thawne does. And, of course, maybe he shouldn't. I don't know the way they're setting this up. I kept thinking, oh, there's some underhanded plot here. But the way it's set up, he even denied Nora pleas to help her. And he says no, and no, and no, and then finally he's all right. and of course, this was kind of a callback to the early days of the series when Thawne, who everyone thought was Harrison Wells, was training Barry and mentoring him on how to use his powers and everything. And there's a little bit of that where he explains to Nora about how to beat Godspeed, which she does. And so all that's good stuff, and it starts off kind of, I was thinking, it's going to be too goofy, and then it builds up to what I know this show is capable of. It's not perfect, but this is a good cast, and some powerful stuff, but I mean, you just have to go with that Barry Allen really hates Thawne. But Thawne makes a point here. You're taking it out on your daughter in this case. I certainly understand you being angry with her, but to banish her to the future, which of course is where she belongs, but the idea you could never come back and never visit me or anything like that, when she's never going to get to see him. He's, the clock's ticking on him as well, unless of course they're going to do something that changes the outcome of the crisis. And the Flash was, which I think if they're doing the crisis in the next season, because I think the Flash is the one show that is surviving. I think Supergirl's in trouble, Legends is going, Arrow's going, so I'm guessing there will be some kind of time warp thing, and the Flash will not disappear into the crisis as they had established earlier, and they'll figure some way to save him. And it won't go as similar, because the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, Barry Allen the Flash died, and he was dead for a very long time, especially in the superheroes. There's other superheroes have got that beat. The original Marvel Comics, Captain Marvel, he's still dead. The original Gwen Stacy, she's still dead. Yeah, so you got that going for them. But Barry Allen and Supergirl, they both died in the original Crisis, and then slowly but surely, especially for Supergirl, there's different other versions of her, but the Supergirl took a while for her to come back. And then eventually so did Barry Allen, and so on and so forth. Wally West took over for a while, and was actually, in a lot of ways, more popular, I think. It seemed that way. And then some aspects of Wally West's personality kind of got grafted on to Barry Allen as it is now. But anyway, A good episode. I was thinking, well, the cheese factor might have been too much, but no. I guess it's a solid 5. I mean, it's kind of hard. Maybe I should push it to 10 stars instead of just 5 in this, because there were episodes that are excellent, and I keep referring to the one that the bomb and everything. That was probably their peak and the best episode they produced out of this series. But they've had good ones that are just good because of the strength of the cast. Even though there's only a handful, the rest of the cast just sat around and stared while they were reading the diary. So, but I have an affection for the show, and it's not for everybody. But this was a good one. So there you go. The Flash, Godspeed. And I'm not saying Godspeed as goodbye. I mean the title of the show. You get it. Ah, well. Thank you for watching and listening, and please like and subscribe. If you didn't like it, well, thank you for watching anyway. And if you've already subscribed, a special thank you to you, because I do appreciate it. Yeah, I do. And while you're here, why not check out the link descriptions below? I'll take you to my podcast, stuff like that, and other channels. But also to my mini stores that have plenty of goodies for you.